The U.S. has sold billions of dollars in weapons to Taiwan to defend itself against China. But there's a backlog on the delivery of those weapons going as far back as 2017. Bryant Harris is the Congress reporter at Defense News. Bryant, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Why is it taking so long for weapons to be delivered?
So there are a lot of issues, and there's a lot of finger pointing with these issues. So, as one staffer on the Hill put it, sometimes it's an industry issue in terms of production. Sometimes it's a bureaucratic issue at the Defense Department or State Department. And sometimes it's an issue with the country's budgeting process and, frankly, the equipment they're asking for. And a lot of times the right hand isn't talking to the left. So it's not just Taiwan. Foreign military sales issues occur consistently across the board. Taiwan is a country that they're perhaps most concerned about, of course, because as we saw last month with the military drills, if China were to blockade the island, we can't keep getting weapons in like we're in Ukraine. So a lot of it right now has to do with supply chain issues, but it also goes back to kind of the whole foreign military sales process.
So let's talk about that process.
Yeah.
What is the process for foreign military sales?
Yeah, it starts even before like a country like Taiwan were to start talking to the U.S. about what the equipment they want. They need to formulate their own budget, which can take like a year or two. So that eats up quite a bit of time. But once they formally start talking to the United States, once they have their budget in order, they submit a letter of request, and then that will lead to it can take up as much as 2 to 3 years before the State Department approves that sale, because there are a series of reviews you have to go through. So, for example, there's a technology disclosure review where they want to make sure that we're not transferring incredibly sensitive technology that could fall into the hands of a country like China for interest. But one of the concerns that some folks on Capitol Hill have, for instance, that are taking a look at this, is that the people doing this review are more risk averse. Whereas, the regional policy people might be more bullish about, getting more advanced equipment to Taiwan so that they can fend off a potential Chinese attack.
So this whole process could take years until the weapon actually gets there. The U.S. has been sending billions of dollars worth of weapons to Ukraine.
Yep.
Is that slowing things down for Taiwan?
Yes and no. So the Taiwan foreign military sales process is separate from the presidential drawdown authority that President Biden has been using to send these weapons to Ukraine. So the weapons to Ukraine are coming from pre-existing U.S. stockpiles. In the foreign military sales process, the defense contractor usually starts producing that weapon after they receive a final contract from the Defense Department. That said, a lot of the items we've been sending to Ukraine, like the Stinger anti-ship missiles, harpoons, the HIMARS, they are a lot of the same items that are in this 14 billion backlog.
So
that
Ukraine
Taiwan has.
is prioritized. So Taiwan is not going to get those anytime soon.
Well, they were never going to get them from U.S. stockpiles, but the problem is the U.S. has to replenish those stockpiles. Right. So then we have to build more for ourselves, which can, add to delays in the defense industrial base to getting these.
So let's talk about what's being done, because as an example, Taiwan bought F-16 fighter jets. They're not expected to get them until 2026.
Right.
So what's being done to speed things up?
Yeah, so actually just this week or last week, the State Department, or pardon me, the Pentagon announced that they're setting up a Tiger team, which is basically an interagency team with the State Department of technical experts to look at this process and see where they can reduce the bureaucratic hurdles, and there are quite a few of them. I mentioned one, the technological review process before. And on Capitol Hill, they're starting to raise alarm bells on this and starting to legislate. Within the coming few weeks, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is trying to mark up a bill called the Taiwan Policy Act. That has $4.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine, or to Taiwan, excuse me. But it also tries to address some of these pre-existing backlog issues with arms sales for Taiwan. So it would direct the Defense Department and State Department to prioritize these transfers to Taiwan from the sales. It would also designate Taiwan as a major non-NATO ally, and that designation is key to expediting arms transfers. And they also the bill would also establish a munitions stockpile, pre-positioned U.S. munitions stockpile in Taiwan that they could draw upon in the event of a Chinese aggression.
And is that bill expected to go through?
It's looking pretty good. The White House does have some concerns, but in terms of, it's a huge sprawling bill, so there is also some sanctions components, but in terms of the defense components, I think the administration is largely on the same page, so I would imagine that would be a pretty easy pass for Congress in the next few months.
And just summing up here, Bryant, you know, these sales to Taiwan is really about deterring China. So what's the backlog doing to impact that? And does that impact the ability of the U.S. and allies like Taiwan to deter Chinese aggression?
Yeah, what U.S. officials and policymakers refer to is usually what they call a strategy of denial, and that involves getting a lot of these weapons to Taiwan in advance. The Chinese military is obviously a lot more powerful than Taiwan, but they call it asymmetric capabilities because they want to make it as painful as possible should China invade. But getting these weapons in the first place is key to that.
Is a big part of that pain.
Exactly.
Bryant, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.